Here we go. Celebrities, politicians, and everyday Americans are sounding off on the Trayvon Martin case. What effect is this having? And is he being victimized all over again? Plus, what caused a JetBlue pilot's very public, very disturbing outburst mid-flight? There is an explanation. Let's get started. Welcome this evening. We're in cries for justice are mounting for slain African-American Trayvon Martin. And tonight, questions swirl around the man who shot and killed him. Neighborhood volunteer Watch Captain George Zimmerman has been vilified by much of America. He has not been charged or made any statements about the tragedy. 911 calls give us some idea about the events that happened that night. Take a listen.
It sounds like a male.
And you don't know why?
I don't know why. I think they're yelling help, but I don't know. Just send someone quick.
Okay. Does he look hurt to you?
I can't see him. I don't want to go out there. I don't know what's going on. So they're sending him.
So you think he's yelling help?
Yes.
All right. What is your...
Joining me, Mark Garagos, criminal defense attorney, Tanya Acker, also an attorney, and Daryl Parks. She is an attorney for the Martin family. Daryl, have Trayvon's parents... Here's what I want to ask about that call we just heard. We all listen to that. We're trying to understand it. We're breaking it down and examining it. But Trayvon's parents, how did they react to us? They're listening to their son's last moments.
It's very difficult. You know, I think the father says it best when he's asked to describe how he learned of his kid's death and how when the policeman came to his home after he had made several calls to the department. And when the detective learned the facts and told him to wait one moment, came back and showed him a folder with a picture of his son shot, lying on the ground. I mean, it was just totally just hurt.
Wow, that is the first time I've heard what the parents actually went through. That is awful. Now, moments after the gunshot was heard, another 911 call from Zimmerman's gated neighborhood reported a man in a white T-shirt allegedly on top of another person. Take a listen to this.
The guy on top had a white T-shirt.
What do you mean, guy on top? Did you see a fight?
I don't know. I looked out my window and there's a guy on top with a white T-shirt.
A white T-shirt? Did you see what kind of pants?
No.
Okay, he was on top of what?
I couldn't see the other thing. I couldn't see the person he was on.
But he was on top of a person?
Mm-hmm.
Mark, what if Zimmerman was wearing that white T-shirt? What if we can connect those dots?
Well, the thing that's inexplicable about this case and why people are so outraged, I do a fair amount of criminal defense work and have for 30 years. I can't think of a single case that I've ever had where there's a dead body and it's not a policeman who did the shooting where the person wasn't arrested. Having said that, you want them to do a good investigation. Nobody's saying you don't, but the problem is that they never do what they do here, which is not arrest somebody first. Usually you arrest first, you ask questions later, and that's always a complaint. And if, in fact, that is him in the white with the white shirt, that's not a good fact. But some of the other stuff that's coming out, you can see now why the state's attorney's office is having some issues. They want to investigate this.
But the local police recommended arrest. That's my understanding.
Local police had the ability, and this is it, to just arrest. They didn't have to go to the state's attorney first. They could have arrested, taken the file over to the state's attorney and said, here, now it's in, it's your lookout. They didn't. And that's highly unusual.
And is that a function, Tanya, of this stand your ground law, or is this the subtle operation of racism, as people are thinking?
Well,
or maybe not so subtle.
I think that the local police would say that it's a function of the stand your ground law. The authors of the stand your ground law would disagree. But I do think, you know, going back to Mark's point, I mean, what is just so outrageous to so many people about this case is that you have police officers showing up on a crime scene, assuming that the dead person is a criminal and assuming that the shooter is telling the truth. I mean, where do we get making those assumptions?
You're shaking your head. Yes, that's the issue. They're making assumptions based on stereotype and race.
Right, and that's why this case resonates, and that's why people are interested in it, and that's why people are following it.
And Tanya, you mentioned the originators of the Stand Your Ground law. If my controller would help me out here, I have some comments from Jeb Bush, who originated this particular law. And Daryl, I'm going to ask you to comment on this. Can you get that for me up there? Here we are. He's actually the one that signed the Stand Your Ground law into law in 2005. And he told reporters that the law doesn't apply in this incident. He himself, he said, I'm going to quote this, stand your ground means stand your ground. It doesn't mean chase after somebody who's turned their back, unquote. Daryl, how do you respond to Jeb Bush's comments?
I think clearly from the 911 tapes it's clear that Trayvon was being followed. I mean, Mr. Zimmerman calls the 911 operator, reports that there's a suspicious person there, says he's following him. She instructs him not to follow him, and he does so anyway. In addition to that, he also goes out and he follows Mr. Trayvon Martin. Now, he's demonstrating vigilante justice at its worst in America, and this is why so many people are outraged here.
And Tanya, what do we know about, I guess, domestic violence with Zimmerman and the issue that he was not tested for drugs, and yet in the court of public opinion now we have reefer madness raising its ugly head as it pertains to poor Trayvon. He had, God forbid, traces of cannabis, Mark. Hold on now. Traces in a plastic bag. That explains everything.
Which last I heard was not cause for being shot down in the street. But, you know, what we do know about Mr. Zimmerman is that there were allegations of domestic violence against him. A former partner got a restraining order against him. He also got one in return. There were allegations that he was involved in a physical confrontation with a police officer.
And he needed some alcohol counseling.
And he needed some alcohol counseling. And so the great irony about all that is, look, you know, it's not to crucify this guy in the media. It's to go... Zimmerman.
You're not interested in crucifying him.
I'm not interested in crucifying him, but what I am interested in is pointing out how wrong the police were in assuming...
I think Tanya's on to something here, because this has been my point. People, you know, as we produce these segments, people are like, oh, what's next with Zimmerman? What do we find out of? I kind of feel like I don't care. I don't care.
It really doesn't matter. That's why I said yesterday... All the reports that were coming out where there's witnesses who say, well, I saw this or I saw that.
It doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter, because the issue, and it goes back to what we first started talking about, it's what resonates is everybody who has any experience with the police whatsoever, and unfortunately those in the minority community have a lot more experience with the police, knows that if the roles were reversed, the police would have arrested first.
Daryl,
it's incomprehensible.
Well, it's incomprehensible, and it's bringing to light something. I can say this night over night. It's bringing to consciousness something. And unfortunately, your clients, Trayvon's parents, have to carry this crucible. He's had to die to raise our awareness. Are they aware that that's what's happening in this country?
Well, they're rather clear, I think, and that's why they went to Capitol Hill yesterday to testify. And think about how hard it was. You know, I stood next to her yesterday as she testified before the committee. I stood next to her as she was in the press conference, and I could feel the tension on his mother. And yet she is being such a soldier to go through this here just to get simple justice for her son. That's all. And I agree. And then had it been reversed, you know, he would have been arrested on the spot. And for whatever reason, Mr. Zimmerman is given more than the benefit of the doubt in this situation.
Daryl, would you please send his parents our regards? You know, I think as much as anything for me, this is a story about parents in America, and we can all unite around that one issue, is that we have a group of parents that have to worry about this special thing, about the color of their skin. We're going to talk about the hoodie thing coming up too, but the fact that we have parents that are our peers, our colleagues, our friends, that have to worry about this particular issue when their kids go out at night, please send them our regards and support, will you?
I sure will. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. Daryl Parks. Next, what, if anything, does a string of burglaries have to do with this case? Find out when we come back.